There is an intelligence which permeates every atom of matter and embraces every unit of energy perceptible. This infinite intelligence converts acorns into oak trees, causes water to flow downhill in response to the law of gravity, follows night with day and winter with summer. This intelligence may, through the principles of this philosophy, be induced to aid in transmuting desires into concrete or material form. But does it really work in the real world? There's only one way to find out.
J'espère que vous allez bien et que vous avez la méga pêche. Ici c'est koladevision, on parle d'entrepreneuriat, de motivation, de réussite et d'échec car ça fait partie du processus pour pouvoir bien réussir. Aujourd'hui on va mettre en place une vidéo de PROCTOR qui va vous expliquer le livre de Napoléon à travers le succès que vous pouvez mettre en place pour bien réussir dans la vie et il va vous parler des 13 lois de principe pour avoir le succès dans la vie. Maintenant, si vous êtes nouveau ou nouvelle dans cette chaîne, je vous souhaite de vous abonner et activer la cloche de notification pour ne rien rater de nos vidéos. Abonnez-vous et activez la cloche de notification pour ne rien rater de nos vidéos. Sans plus tarder, sur ce, je vous souhaite bon visionnage et à très bientôt.
There are no accidents in this whole universe. Everything operates in an orderly way. You've been wandering around, I would imagine, with a desire inside that you really want to improve any or maybe all areas of your life. What you're going to hear will enable you to change that. And this is all about you. It's not about me, it's about you. I'm going to share information with you that really originated way back in 1908 from the wealthiest man in the world, Andrew Carnegie. He commissioned a young reporter to go out and find the laws that govern success. There were successful people, himself, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. Some of the giants that we look at in history as names that they'll live forever. And he said it was a shame that these people were going to go to their grave with all this knowledge locked up in their bones. And he said, I think it should be recorded. And that young man, Napoleon Hill, he took Carnegie's challenge and he went and worked at that until 1928, when he wrote The Laws of Achievement. And then in 1937, from it came the book, one of the greatest selling books of all time, Think and Grow Rich. And in that book, he pointed out, after all these years of research, that he found there were 30 major causes of failure. But there were only 13 ideas that contributed to a person accumulating a fortune or enjoying real success. One of the things I found interesting is at the end of the 30 major causes of failure, he put 31. He said, if I've missed any, you can fill this in. And I would imagine that someone has filled that in. So I want you to really pay close attention. This is not an ordinary film that you're watching. These are not ordinary ideas. These ideas are coming from 57 years of focused study by myself and tens and tens of years by Napoleon Hill. But it's really the composite of some of the greatest minds that ever lived. Because he did research with these people for so long, kept picking their brain. In fact, he became very close friends with them. And what caused them to do many of the things they were doing, the ideas that got the Wright brothers off the ground, that enabled Henry Ford to build the car he built. These ideas, they're the ideas that you can have and you can use. Now, I know they work because I've used them. I've used them almost all of my adult life. In the preamble of the book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill says there's a secret in this book. And he said, if you can find the secret in a book, you can have anything you seriously want. Naturally, I'm wondering, what's the secret when I first started to read the book? Do you know, almost every seminar that I've ever spoken in, or any convention I ever spoke in, I talk about that, and people say, what's the secret? I said, you know, if I told you what the secret was, you're not going to look for it. And if you don't look for it, you're not going to find what you really need to get to where you want to go. I have never told anyone what my perception of that secret is. But he pointed out that everyone who found it and used it has earned millions of dollars. They have built very large organizations, and he names them one after another. Very impressive names. Every one of them found the secret. You're going to find the secret in these 13 principles. Believe me. One day I took a pen and I sat down and I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it. But you know what I've found? You don't have to know how you're going to do it. You just have to know you're going to do it. So if you've got a desire to build something, to do something that's extraordinary for you, I can promise you one thing. If you will focus on what I'm suggesting, I'm going to show you how to do it. You see, the beautiful truth is you've already got everything you need inside. You don't have to get it. You don't have to follow the pattern that our formal educational institutions teach us. You don't have to read all the books. That's not necessary. I think Madame Montessori put it very well. She said we tend to send a child to school as if they're an empty cup and we expect them to fill the cup. She says the truth is the cup's already full. School is to help draw out what's already there. You see, you and I are God's highest form of creation. There's nothing on the planet that will even come close to us. Strange thing, you know, you and I are the only creature on the planet that is totally disoriented in our environment. All those other little creatures, they're completely at home in their environment. They blend in. We don't. We're totally disoriented. And that is because we have the ability, you and I do, of creating our own environment. Now think of what that means. That means that you and I can literally create the life we want. You know, as I said, when I first heard that, I did not believe it. But I knew the man that was giving me the advice believed it. And that man was Raymond Douglas Stanford, one of my very first mentors. And as he said to me, he said, Bob, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? Now, to help you understand where I was, I'd been asked to leave school. They didn't want me there after 2 months in high school. And I can understand why they didn't want me. I was a poor student. I didn't want to pay attention. I had never had a half-decent job in my life. I was earning $4,000 a year, but I owed $6,000. The prospect of even getting out of debt wasn't there. He said, Bob, that's all reasons why you can't do what you want to do. We're not going to spend any time on that. We're going to focus on how you can. This idea has been proved by people much smarter than us. And the beautiful truth is, it works for everyone. Not just some people, for everyone. And I think this thing is stuck in my mind. He said, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? Now spend a moment right now and ask yourself, what would you really like to do? I mean, what do you really want? Do you know, the truth is your spiritual DNA is perfect. We hear a lot of talk about DNA today. Well, if you get past all the nonsense that's been programmed into our subconscious mind from genetics and in our environment, and get right down to the core of who you really are, your spiritual DNA is perfect. And it's that perfection that's seeking expression with and through us. That's why we want things. It doesn't matter what we're doing, we want more. Now, as a little boy, I was taught by my grandmother, who pretty well raised me, that you should be satisfied with what you've got. Grandma was a dear woman. She was like an angel of God, but she was wrong. We should never be satisfied with what we got. We should be happy with what we've got, but never satisfied. You see, dissatisfaction is a creative state for our mind to move into. It causes us to want to do more. We should ask ourselves where those wants come from. Do you know it's that perfection within that keeps jabbing you in the consciousness? Want this, want that. If you're running, you want to run faster. If you're jumping, you want to jump higher. If you're selling, you want to sell more. If you're singing, you want to sing a better tune. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. You want to do it better. And the beautiful part of this life when you look back. I often say you're going to need a telescope to look back and see where you started. Now that may sound like an exaggeration, but it's really not. Remember I said I was $4,000 in debt, or I earned $4,000 and I owed $6,000. I've earned millions of dollars. Now I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you, if a guy like myself can do it, anybody can do it. It's pretty well known today there's a lot of fear in the world. People are wondering what's going to happen. We've gone through many tough times if you study history. I was born during the Great Depression. So I was of an age then, I remember some of the things as a little kid. Then we went into a world war. And when the Depression ended, it was sort of like a theater where the lights were out. It was empty, but the lights started to come up. And things started to get brighter. England. And I looked at all this and I thought, how did this happen? And I didn't know. If you had asked me, I couldn't tell you. But you know what I have found? I have found most highly successful people cannot articulate on why they are. They will say, well, I do this or I do that. And they'll point to one of these 13 principles that they worked at and mastered. The truth is, they're probably using them all and just not aware of it. They're what you call, or I call, an unconscious competent. They're very competent, but they're not consciously aware of why. Now, the sad part of this is that they've got this wonderful way of life, but they can't even transfer it to their children, nor can they give it to their staff. So you find very successful businessmen and women in business or just in life, but they don't know why. Well, I got very curious. I wanted to know why. Why did a guy like me change? I didn't believe there was an emotional or capricious God reached out and said, let's give Bob a chance. I didn't believe that. I thought, something's happened. What's happened? Well, I spent 9.5 years studying with some absolutely brilliant people. Now, I formed a good habit over that time. I picked good mentors, and that's very important. You can use these films as a mentor. You can. You can let me be your mentor. You know, I've often heard it said people that have been gone for a couple of thousand years can help you more than somebody that's alive today. And I get a lot of help from people that have been gone for a long time through their books and writings. So you could use this series as a mentor. But a habit I formed right from the first person that helped me, Ray Stanford, he said, do exactly what I tell you. And for some reason, I decided I would. I didn't question him, I just did it. He said, do it until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. And he said, I don't lie, and I do know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to say that to you, and hopefully you'll grasp it the same as I did. Do what I suggest in these films until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't lie. And believe me, I do know what I'm talking about. Many years ago, they said, by their results, you'll know them, or by their fruits, you'll know them. Well, I'm 84. I've got as much energy as many people, 24 or 44. I've earned millions of dollars. I have wonderful friends all over the world. And this came to a guy that started with nothing. This does work for anyone. It truly does work for anyone. So dig into this and say, I'm going to give this a whirl until I find out he's lying or he doesn't know what he's talking about. You do that, and you're going to find these 13 principles will change your life like night and day. I searched every day, and every time I picked a new mentor, and I did pick new mentors, I did exactly what they said. It was difficult at first because what I was really doing was changing habit patterns. But they were teaching me things. They were teaching me information that the average person may never learn. I developed a very close rapport with them. And they were brilliant people, every one of them very accomplished. That is a good rule. If you want to do something, go to someone who has demonstrated by results they do know what they're talking about. Ask them, what should you do? Then do exactly what they tell you. Now, I know that works because I'm still doing it. And I do it every day. So I'm going to ask you to resurrect some of those dreams that you may have let fade. Bring them to the surface of your mind. Treat this as some magic formula if you want. And you'll find out it'll produce. I once read where a writer said, you know, when you really understand how the magicians perform their tricks, it isn't magic any longer. And that's true. I work conventions every now and then, and there's a magic act at the convention. They'll ask me to take part in some part of it. So to do that, I have to understand what they're doing. And I found out it's hard to believe. Wonder why the audience doesn't see this. When you understand the trick, it's not magic. But when you understand life, it's really magic. And that's what you're going to find. That's what you're going to find all wrapped up in this. It's absolutely incredible. To understand these 13 principles, this absolutely incredible philosophy, I think we should go back to where it all started. And as you get involved in this, as you mentally build this image in your mind, you're going to see how all this has fallen in place. And it's absolutely incredible the more you think about it. Now, I have been studying this for so long, it's really a part of my life. But we have to go way back to 1908. Things were pretty primitive then relative to today. We weren't moving at the speed we're moving at now. Napoleon Hill was a young reporter for a little magazine. And someone, probably the editor, decided they would run a series of articles of interviewing wealthy people. Hill was fortunate enough to get an interview, a 3-hour interview, with the wealthiest man in the world, Andrew Carnegie. And he went and he sat and he interviewed him. Now, unbeknownst to Napoleon Hill, Andrew Carnegie was looking for someone that he could give a big project to. And he hadn't yet found anyone. At the end of the 3-hour interview, Andrew Carnegie said to Napoleon Hill, "Napoleon, this interview isn't ending, it's just beginning. I want you to come home with me." Hill said he was glad he took him home because he didn't have enough money to rent a hotel room. He spent 3 days with Andrew Carnegie, the wealthiest man in the world. Now think of this. Over those 3 days, Andrew Carnegie shared his philosophy. See, he started out as a poor boy, immigrated from Scotland with his parents just as a boy. They didn't have anything. So he went from nothing to be the wealthiest man in the world. And he shared with Napoleon Hill his whole philosophy. At the end of the 3 days, Carnegie decided that, I think this is the man I'm looking for. I guess you could tell by his level of interest in the story, the philosophy of what got him to where he was. There was probably a number of factors came into play, but Carnegie I think he's the guy. And so he asked him a question. Unbeknownst to Napoleon Hill, he only gave him 60 seconds to answer the question. And at the end of the 60 seconds, he would have to make a decision, a monumentous decision, if you think about it. He looked at him. He had a stopwatch in his hand under his desk. And he says, "Napoleon, you've spent 3 days with me. You know now how I've accomplished what I've accomplished." He says, "I'm going to ask you a question, and I just want a yes or no answer." Just a yes or no answer, Napoleon. He said, "Would you spend or invest the rest of your life in an idea for which you would probably receive no material compensation for at least 20 years? How would you answer that question? I've asked myself on many occasions how I would answer it. In 25 seconds, Napoleon Hill said yes, he would. He qualified. He passed the essay test. And he had to make a decision. That was a big decision. You're going to run up against decisions. This is one of the 13 principles. Napoleon Hill wrote a whole chapter on decision in his book, Think and Grow Rich. And right on the very first page, he points out that all successful people make decisions very fast. They change them very slow, if and when they change them at all. And he pointed out that people that are not successful make decisions very slow and change them fast and often. I guess that's why Andrew Carnegie gave him 60 seconds. If he took longer, he would be disqualified. How do you make decisions? Now, Carnegie said to Hill, he said, "Now, Napoleon, I'm going to introduce you to some of the world's most successful people." He said, "I'm going to give you letters of introduction. You'll receive no subsidy from me. I want you to go out and write the laws of achievement." He says, "It's a shame that people like myself are going to their grave with all this knowledge locked up in their bones." He said, "I want it organized. And I want you to organize it. I will give you letters of introduction, and then you're on your own." Now, he said, "You're going to run into many tough times, Napoleon. No question about that. So he said, I'm going to give you something that'll help you through those tough times. I want you to write this out. I want you to write every word. No one's going to underline every word. Now he said, this is a message that you're going to give from yourself to yourself, Napoleon. So it's going to be you talking to you. I want you to write down Andrew Carnegie. I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. Well, as the story goes, he threw his pencil on the floor. He says, now you know darn well I'm not going to be able to do that. He says, I know you're not Napoleon, unless and until you believe it. But I want you to repeat that every morning, and I want you to repeat it every night. I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to repeat that. Looking in your eye, say, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post, and I'm going to pass you at the grandstand. Now, that wasn't an easy thing for Hill to do. He was living with his brother. He had promised his brother that he was going to pay for him to go through college. Now he was going to have to go home and tell his brother he couldn't do that. He had a project that he was working on. It was going to take all his time. And it was going to take every cent that he could get for himself. Then he was afraid to tell his brother what he was going to do because he thought his brother would think he had lost his mind. He's going to work on a 20-year project. Nobody's giving him any money. Nobody's going to pay him. The first day he went and he locked himself in the bathroom. And he looked in the mirror and he whispered it. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and I'm going to pass you at the grandstand. Now he said he felt when he was saying like he was a darn fool. He said, this isn't going to happen. But he said, I made a commitment that I would do this, so I better do it. So every morning and every night he would do this. Now he had committed that he would do it for 30 days. Around the middle of the month, he started to think maybe it could happen. By the end of the month, he knew it would happen. Now I've done a fair amount of study on this over the last 50 years, and anything I've been able to discover is that Carnegie made somewhere in the vicinity of 50 millionaires. Some people say 20. I've read 23. I've read 50. Napoleon Hill has made millions of millionaires. So you see, he did equal his achievements. He went past his achievements, and he did pass them at the grandstand. Here's a poor boy, a young cub reporter for a magazine. How did he do that? Why did he do that? I think he did it strictly on the belief that Carnegie wasn't going to ask him to do anything that was unjust.
J'espère que vous avez appris énormément de choses sur l'explication de Bob Proctor sur les 13 principes et lois du succès qui a été écrit par Napoléon Hill en faisant des recherches énormes à travers des hommes qui ont réussi dans le monde entier comme Henry Ford, Thomas Edison et plein d'autres entrepreneurs qui ont vraiment réussi dans la vie. Et j'espère que vous allez implanter ça aussi dans votre vie, petit à petit, de pas à pas, pour pouvoir grandir et avoir le succès aussi dans votre vie. Là, c'est la chaîne des entrepreneurs. On va parler de motivation, de réussite, entrepreneuriat et d'échec aussi, car ça fait partie du processus pour pouvoir bien réussir. Vous ne pouvez pas réussir sans avoir d'échec dans la vie. Je vous souhaite à très bientôt sur une nouvelle vidéo. Merci beaucoup. Ciao, ciao.